And we're on Psalm 122. And so, what we're going to look at, we're going to do things slightly differently. We're going to we've done the scripture, we're going to do a little bit of the talky bit at the beginning, and then we're going to look at applying this, because there are two main themes which we look at with this psalm. One being worship. We come together to worship, and the other being prayer. Okay, so that's why we're doing it in this way. And Psalm 122 was written by David. Kids, apart from having the best name in the Bible, what do we know about David? Anybody? Go on, Libby. He was a king. So this psalm is written by David, the king, and it's one of four that is known to be written in the Psalms of Ascent from David. And the psalm was supposed to be written, it says it's a song of ascent. And it's a song to be sung. And the song is to be sung as the people of God were traveling towards Jerusalem. Tim told us the other week, in fact the last 2 weeks, the importance of singing when doing a journey, when traveling. Does anyone agree? It's great to sing. I'm not going to get you to sing, you'll be pleased to know. But this psalm was written for the people of Israel to sing as they were traveling to Jerusalem. And it was written to encourage, to strengthen, and to guide God's people. And they were encouraged to go at least 3 times each year to Jerusalem together as the people of God to celebrate the main festivals. And so this is a psalm about worship. That's our main theme, our first theme today. And what does David start? Could we have the first 5 verses up? What does David start the psalm with? What is the tone? Someone shout out. Rejoice. Worship is to be joyful. And David starts the psalm with rejoicing. And when we think of worship, we should be thinking about being joyful and coming into God's presence with joy. And that is difficult. But we come to worship by giving God our praise and to be thankful in his presence. And when the people of God were traveling, they had made a choice to get up, leave their house, and to go into the city. And that is the same when we come to worship. We each have a choice to get up and to put our attention and our focus on Jesus. And that is what our worship is. Why do we worship Jesus? Why do we worship God? Because he is worthy. And we're going to look a little bit about what that means and why we worship God. But we come to give him glory because he is awesome. And David was writing about the city of Jerusalem, and you get this sense of journeying, the people getting towards Jerusalem and getting close to where the presence of God was. Now, this was before the time of the temple. The temple wasn't built until Solomon, David's son, was there. But what was in Jerusalem at that time was the tabernacle, which was where the presence of God had been and the people of Israel had carried throughout their history and was now in Jerusalem. And there's this sense that as people got towards Jerusalem, they were getting close to where God was and his presence was. And that is the same with our worship, that when we come and worship, we are drawing closer to God. We are connecting with him. We are drawing into his presence. Can we put the picture slide up, please? And if you've been, you'll know that Wembley Way is a really important and a famous place in English sport, not just football, but with other sports and events like concerts. And there's a sense of excitement as people draw close to the stadium. And that's what it was like with the Jewish people at the time, that as they came together, they had people from different tribes who came together, just like in the football there, where people come with their teams, different colors, different places, and they're coming together. There's songs, there's excitement. And this psalm talks about the excitement of the journey towards Jerusalem to be in the presence of God. And when we talk about the tribes, I love in verse 4, it says this, and this is where the tribes go up, the tribes of the Lord, to praise the name of the Lord, according to the statute given to Israel. And the people of Israel, all these tribes that were spread out, were coming together, but they had one shared identity. And that identity was based on their history, on their heritage, and what God had done for them. God had chosen them as tribes. God had brought them out of slavery, and God had given them a land of their own. But then he'd blessed them abundantly, and he had kept all of his promises because he was Yahweh. And when I look round at our church, isn't it wonderful to see that we have all come from different places, different tribes across the world, different cultures, different colours. And we represent the people of God today in Bradford, just like the people of God were represented in tribes back in the time of David. And I think that is wonderful, that we are so different, but we are united. Even though we come from different backgrounds, we are united in worship. And we are united together. And we come to celebrate and to give thanks together for what God has done. And what has God done for us? He's created me. He's created you. He chose each one of us to be part of his family. Kids, do you know you have been chosen to be part of God's family? Isn't that amazing? Thank you, Romy. That's what we like. So we've all been chosen, but we know that as people, we make mistakes. The things that we do, the things that we say, often harm others and can harm ourselves. And what we find is that where God wanted people like us to be close to him, the things that we do can separate us from God, and we lose that connection with him. And because God is so holy, Yahweh, who was the God of the Israelites, is our God. Because he is so holy, we know that there is no place for sin in the presence of God. But God had a plan. After the time of David, God sent Jesus for me, for you, for us all. And he showed his love for us by sending Jesus to make right what was wrong, to bring the gap between us and God back together again. Because we all deserve the punishment for our sin, which is death and being separated from God. But what Jesus did was came as a man to earth to live and to suffer just like us and to go to the cross. And he died in our place, taking what we deserve so that we could be brought back to family and connection with Jesus. But he didn't stay dead. He rose again. He defeated death. And when we were far away from God, Jesus' death and resurrection has brought us back into close relationship so that we can come and worship him. And Jesus has given us a way to come back to the Father because he gives us that clean start. And now nothing can separate us from the love of God. Because for those who love Jesus, there is hope and there's a certainty that when Jesus comes back, the mess and the destruction that we see around us will be gone because he will make all things new. And that is the hope of those who walk and journey with Jesus. And that the pain and suffering of this world will finish, but we will be in his presence forever. And that is the identity of us as individuals. What Jesus did for us, but he has done for us collectively as family in East Bowling. And it doesn't matter what tribe, what culture, what background you have come from. But Jesus, the message of Jesus is the same. That each one of us is created. Each one of us is chosen. Each one of us is loved. And the best of all is that each one is given the same way to be saved through Jesus. It doesn't matter. We all have to go through Jesus to be back with God.